Well, hey everybody, it's the 18th day of August 2025. I'm Jan Erickson, and this is As Above, So Below. Well, I hope you had a good weekend. It wasn't so hot here yesterday, so that was nice to actually get outside and do things. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the Elder Futhark rune for the above side of things. We have Othala. Othala is the 24th rune, the last rune in the Elder Futhark. It's a bind rune. It's essentially created by Kenaz in all directions. You've got Ingus at the top and Gebo at the bottom, and here you would be bringing in, each one is made up of Kenaz, this rune here, and you've got it essentially focused inward. You think of Ingus as the seed. Ingus can be drawn as a diamond or as two X's, one on top of the other, and depending on which set you're using. But then when you take the top off here, you have Gebo, which is an X, and so that's expressing the light of spirit outward. It's the torch, it's awakening, it's illumination. As the 24th rune of the Elder Futhark, to me, it's the culmination of everything that we as souls come in here to learn and experience in terms of loyalty and oaths and family and tradition and security, inheritance, possessions, all that we accrue, ancestral heritage. It also means sacred space. And generally, that's how the initial interpretation I give Othala is the sacred space we exist in or create for ourselves, assuming we're conscious of that. Some people just aren't. They see themselves as cut off and alone and single or singular instead of being part of a collective consciousness. Let's put these runes for the Geomancy runes, we'll put the elementals into the order of fire, air, water, and earth. And here we have Kata Draconis. Kata and Capit. Kata is sort of past life experience or just past experience in the present form. It's the south node of the moon. It can mean karma, whereas its complement, Capit Draconis, is being on the threshold of new beginnings. This is sort of like endings. Something's coming to an end today. Now, in terms of Othala, though, if you're looking at your sacred space, many people right now feel that their sacred space, what they've created for themselves, is being threatened. And so we may start to see maybe the end of that or the impact of karma on that sort of experience. Generally speaking, here you can look at it from an inner perspective, where maybe you're doing something to affect your sacred space, or it could be the external influences right now that are impacting our sacred space. And so you can maybe think of that as maybe something is coming out here today or over the next few days where it's going to illuminate some things that are karmic, essentially. And so there could be something again that you're doing that where you need to solidify your sacred space, or your sacred space is threatened by the past, by past behavior, either yours or someone else's. And again, karma isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just making us relive some things to where we finally get an understanding of what that's all about, what that overall higher message is all about. And so again, there could be a little bit of a loosening of that hold today with Kata Draconis. But I mean, it can mean terminating affairs. It can mean something's coming to an end, in other words. And maybe the protection you've had, maybe that's being threatened. Prosperity, maybe loyalties are coming to an end, or you're beginning to learn some things about the illusory component of it, maybe. But let's take a look at. I don't want to suggest that maybe your foundation has been something that was based on illusion, and that's coming to an end. You could see this. You could see it that way as well. Or it could be that there's something karmic, either from you or somebody else, that's impacting your sacred space and all that you've created for yourself. And we know that that's true. So, on a societal level, we know that. So we'll see. Let's just see. I don't want to decide right now without seeing the cards as to where we're going to go with this, because either way, it could have whichever way you go with it, could have a really big impact on your life. And so before we go there, let's see what the cards have to say. I've already done some shuffling. I'll cut the deck, take the lower half, take 3 cards. So whenever we have major arcana cards, those are soul archetype cards. And it's like soul is coming in and saying, okay, remember, here's your path. Here are the things you're here to learn overall and to experience, right? And then the minor arcana and the court, they're something that just sort of provide the details of things like that, is how I see all of it. But right now we have, I'm going to find my calculator here. Here it is. So we can do the numerology. But we have the Tower and Strength. Those are the 2 cards for the major arcana. So maybe there is some shakeup to your, maybe your idea of what your sacred space has all been about. Or conversely, there could be a shakeup as to those who are trying to control and upend your sacred space, so that truth comes out. Because we can look at the Tower a couple different ways there. And of course, Strength is taming the wild within and all of that. So again, maybe there is something about how you perceive your sacred space that could be changing, where you need to learn a little bit more and gain more clarity about it. That would be the karma aspect of Kata Draconis. But something about it is coming to an end. And with the Tower, it suggests a rebalancing, And so, again, I have to wonder if the last thing I said is the illusion that we have about our sacred space, that things that we've counted on, there's outside influences that are suggesting, no, you can't really count on that anymore. And so let's just see. And then we have the 10 of Wands, where, some people initially might look at that card and say carrying a heavy burden. I tend to say more about trusting the process, but looking out at all of your opportunities and creativity and creative ideas and all of that. So it just kind of depends on, I think, the way the other cards are and what's there, as to how we're going to interpret that. But we may go with the carrying a heavy burden today. But let's do the numerology. So Athala was 24. We have 16 for the Tower. And we have 8 for Strength. And we have 10 for the 10 of Wands. That's 58. 5 and 8 is 13. 1 and 3 is 4. So 4 is again about your foundation and your structure, and it's what holds you up. It's in terms of behavior, it'd be pragmatic and practical behavior. It'd be grounding. But if you think about the structure you have around you, your values and your principles, and as well as, it could also indicate home. It's a very earth element number. So 4 is, and so let's just do that one more time. 24, let me clear that out. 24 plus 16 plus 8 plus 10 Yep, 58. 8 and 5 is 13. 1 and 3 is 4. Um, okay, well, I think we know the direction this is going. Let's take a look at the tower. The tower, here you see a lightning bolt come in and essentially strike the top of the tower here, blowing the lid off. And I think that you see two people falling. You don't know that they're falling to their death or anything. You see fire coming out of the windows, smoke everywhere. But if you look at it in terms of 16, 1 and 6 is 7, and so you're looking at a numerology of 7 overall here for this card, and you're looking at the scales, a set of scales, okay? And essentially, you know, you've got the top here, and here would represent the two pans. So there's a rebalancing, there's letting things settle out, there's observing the situation and being sure of what this meaning is here. But essentially, it's the blasting apart of perception, how you see things. So if we are creating our sacred space based on perception, based on illusion, then we need to have a rebalancing of that today and figure out, okay, well, then what's really going on? And right now, you know, you've got so much disinformation that's out in the world. So you start forming opinions based on something that isn't even real. You can look at a picture or a video and you don't even know if you're looking at something that's real. And so to me, I mean, since say 2015 or so, it's just always felt like the ground is sort of mushy under my feet, you know, energetically, because you don't know for sure what the truth is. And you can do your due diligence, but if you confine yourself to just one type of information, then doing your due diligence is only going to reinforce the perceptions, the perceptual issues that you're having. And so if you've grounded yourself in that, in people's lies, essentially, because that's what they are. I mean, we can talk about them, you know, as being disinformation, but the fact is they're lies. And so you don't really know where you stand with anything and what you can trust anymore. And part of Othala is about that fundamental trust, you know, the idea of loyalty and tradition and all of that. It's there's this feeling of trust that I can trust. You know, I can trust that my bank is not going to do something to me, and take my money and run, essentially, and close down. They're not going to do that. I want to be able to trust that when I go to the grocery store, there's food there for me to buy. I want to trust that, that you can make your house payment. You want to be able to trust those things, those very Othala type of things that keep you in your sacred space and keep you safe and protected there because you understand what the truth is. And to me, with the tower, it's something's coming in and blowing the lid off of all of that. And whatever you thought was real maybe isn't. I know somebody put the tower up on one of the social media sites and made a comment about it. And I made a comment about it too, because I said, well, it just, to me, about the individual he was doing a reading for, which he did not have permission to do the reading. There was only one card that I saw. And maybe he just did a one card reading. And it was all about, the illusion that this person is living under. And that's all coming, and it's all the lid's been blown off the lies. And so the truth is about to come out. And so again, I think that especially with Kata Draconis and the idea of an ending of some kind, we're looking at maybe some truth coming out about either collectively that we're dealing with or within, where perhaps how we see things is just not accurate. And again, if you get your information from a very narrow source all of the time, then there's never going to be any light. There's never, you're going to have something like this happen, where a rebalancing of perspective and perception and belief is going to take place, so that you can then let things settle out. With that 7 numerology here of the tower, you're letting things settle out so that you can understand what it is you're seeing. And if there's a, I realize this is kind of extreme, but sometimes it takes something extreme happening to shake things up, to where you understand if a con is in place, which I believe that it is, then the con gets revealed a little bit more. And some things happening today may help that happen. We'll see. And that's collectively. Individually, though, if this is about your belief structure, or something about home life, something happens where things get shaken up to where now you have to take a look at it again from a different perspective, so that you understand what the truth of all of it is, so you can deal with it, essentially. And with the 8 here, the 8th card of the Major Arcana, Strength, we see the goddess. She's wearing a flower wreath around her head. She's got a garland as a belt around her waist there. She's got the lemniscate above, the figure 8. See, it's the 8th card. And it's about continual, taming the wild within, because she's holding the lion's head very lovingly, and he's just so happy to be with her. You could look at this as the above side and the below side, where the soul is essentially taming the ego within, and having, so that the soul has that inner strength to actually exist in this reality. And so that the ego is not overshadowing it, which typically happens here. And that's the struggle, invoking the soul, the spirit within, to see things from that perspective, to give it everything the meaning that it has from a higher perspective, which involves no judgment. And it's just something, understanding the illusion that we live in, and how do we create something that's real from all of that. And it takes strength to do that, both inner and external strength to do that. And I think that given its soul archetype vibration, if you will, I think that in order to rebalance here and see things from a higher perspective, you've got to have the inner strength to do that. And that comes, again, from higher awareness, from the soul. Because the ego is based in fear. Those are fear-based reactions, and that comes from the ego. It doesn't come from soul. If there's a reason to be concerned, that's one thing, but it's because you've been able to see that from that higher perspective, and maybe you need to take some steps to protect yourself. But all too often, it's the ego that you're having to protect yourself from, either yours or someone else's. The whole idea of personal agenda, doing things at the expense of other people, that's all ego. And we're seeing a lot of that right now. And so again, whether this is on the societal stage, it's on the country stage, the world stage, you're seeing a lot of expression of evil, which is ego. The devil within is your ego. And you're seeing a lot of that, a lot of personal agenda. People want what they want. They don't care what happens to the other people involved, which is kind of a really meager way of describing war, but that's what we're dealing with, particularly in Ukraine and what's happening there. But the idea that to rebalance your perceptions is an easy task, it's not, because it's been so reinforced for so long, right? And especially if you've got family members, you're in a family that they believe all the same stuff, or you got a group of friends that it's all self-reinforcing. So it's very difficult to break out of that prison of perspective. We had last week, or the week before on Thursday, we had Carcer on the 7th. That whole idea of self-imprisonment. And then last Thursday, we had Rubius, which is dealing with a misuse of force. And so I think that you need that inner strength that comes from higher awareness to be able to break out of the bubble that you're in, if this is a personal thing, or to be able to see the collective bubble that we've all been put in of lies, and to be able to see all that differently. So again, microcosm and macrocosm we're kind of doing both of that here. If the readings if it's definite that the readings are that fluid, because what's happening without is very dramatic and traumatic, and will be going forward in the next couple of years. You'll see that when these things come to fruition and are invoked within this last budget bill, you're going to see a lot of people in shock over the Medicaid that's gone and the SNAP benefits that's gone and all of these things that they've needed to survive. And the lies that are being told about why they did what they did, they're just all lies. So it's again, the foundation is not solid, it's not secure, it's not reflective of Othala that we're dealing with collectively. And then on a personal level, though, once your perceptions shift, you may realize that you're carrying a very imbalanced burden here, although this is probably the better way to carry these things. But 10 is about endings and beginnings. It's if you look at the rune Dagaz, all you have to do is look at this Roman numeral X and draw a line down on either side, and you have that little bow tie looking rune, which we had on Thursday of last week, Dagaz. If you turn it here, you kind of have that, don't you? And then here you would have, if you terminate at the ends here, you would have Dagaz. And so basically, the idea of a new day. So you come to some completion and now you're moving on. And so once you've made that shift in perception, you've used the inner strength to do that, you can gather together your ideas and new opportunities and all of that and essentially move forward. You can see it as a heavy burden, but in a sense, he's got this, he's carrying these in such a way to distribute that burden a little bit better, essentially. And over here, he's walking toward what I've always interpreted to be his home. And so everything has to be created anew. Wands is about the fire element. And so that's about the spark of life. It's about creativity, new opportunities, new ideas that you now are able to move forward on, that maybe because now you've reassessed your perceptions, you've reassessed your beliefs, you've kind of weeded out the stuff that's not real. You're left with what the truth is, and you're ready to move forward with that. You've put an end to, in a sense, you've got an ending with endings and beginnings with the 10 numerology. You've got the endings with Kata Draconis, and then the new beginnings with Othala, in a sense, where you're rebuilding that sacred space that you have, and that you need to have, so that Othala is present in your life, so that energy is there, that sacred structure that you have around you that's based on truth and loyalty and trust and prosperity, all of these things, success, instead of being led down the garden path by people who just lie to you and you believe all of that. It's very limiting because you don't come out of that when that's your physical structure. You don't ever leave that. In fact, the people that are lying to you do so in such a way that you won't leave that. You'll stay right there in that self-imposed carcer experience. I think that from that Thursday on the 7th, and then on the 11th we had Nathis and Populus. And then Thursday on the 14th, we had Dagaz and Rubius. I think that it's like, what happens after those three? Because there seemed to be a pattern there where I think we had an 11 on, we had an 11 on the 7th numerology for the reading. We had a 33, which is Christ consciousness. We didn't have a 22, which is the cosmic builder, but then we had double that on the 14th. We had 44, which is not a master number, but it's kind of an interesting one, and it reduces to 8. And so again, you're looking at that higher vibratory place of inner strength where you can move on past the misuse of force that's around you. So maybe again today, this is just another extension of that, maybe. I don't know. You'll have to decide how that resonates for you. But I do think that the only way that you achieve that sense of sacred space is with honesty and trust, and being able to trust the ground you're standing on to be real, and instead of built on lies, where you really, there's nothing firm there. And if people are keeping you, if you're listening to people who are telling you things that really are just their perspective, they're not anything that is necessarily grounded in reality. If you're getting your information from there and forming your own opinions and judgments and perceptions and beliefs, all of that from that, that's a very narrow perspective, and it's difficult to move beyond it and to consider other things that might be true. And so I just think that something is going to happen here that blows the lid off all of that deception. And it will take the inner strength that you have to understand that, you have to tame the wild within, essentially, here with the goddess, being loving to the lion, and just tell your ego, you know what, my ego got the better of me, and I did not see things from a higher perspective to where I could understand that what I'm listening to is garbage. And I just didn't know. I thought it tended to reinforce what I already believed. A lot of these beliefs are fear-based. And so I think a lot of the isms in life are expressions of fear-based belief. That's totally not even remotely real. But that's what happens, apparently. And, with racism and sexism and ageism and all of the isms, that's not based in reality. That's deciding that there's an us versus them experience in life, and us, I'm part of us and you're part of them. So I'm going to fear you, and I'm going to, think badly of you when there's no reason to, right? So that's how those isms get created. They're all fear-based. And I think that it's time to let that go. I think that something is going to happen to awaken you to that. Again, where you have to say now to the lion within, that's the ego, that's, you're not going to govern how I see the world anymore, or how I see myself, or the people around me, or the circumstances around me. I see what the truth is now. I understand that, another agenda has been at work, and I fell right into the trap, and I'm not going to do that anymore. And although it might be a heavy burden, you're rebuilding things, essentially, in terms of new ideas, and carrying them home to rebuild your sacred space, one that you can trust, one that's based on truth, no matter what that truth ends up being. It may not be comfortable, and, a lot of truth isn't, especially when we've believed something else. But whatever's happening in your life, there could be something like this that awakens you to something else. And you realize that whatever you depended upon, you can't. And now you have to rebuild something that you can depend on. So I would say that's just something to think about here this week and going forward. If you need to refer to the last 3 readings, you can do that. If you don't want to spend the time watching them, just go over to Stepping Aside, and the reading notes are there for each reading, and also a link to the videos. But it's because I do do a summary of what it is. But I think that when you see Othala and Kata Draconis together, and then you draw the Tower card, I think it's really telling you that there needs to be, something's going to shake things up and make you start thinking about stuff a little differently. And when that does, it opens up a whole new experience for you that may seem big and burdensome, but at the end of the day, to restructure things in your life, your beliefs, and to where and can count on and depend on that being the truth of things, it's so worth it in the end. So think about it that way here, and if it resonates another way for you, fine. But again, sometimes we get on a path that's just not based in reality, but is based on somebody else's personal agenda. Stuff that they want you to believe that's just not true. It's in service to something or someone else and the control they want to have. And I think that all too often, and I think that this country is been a victim of that for some time, for decades, where the powers that be want you to believe something, and you seesaw back and forth. You've got one set that says one set that says the other, and you go back and forth, and sometimes they're in control, sometimes they're in control, but you're expected to wade through a bunch of stuff, that just seems some of it is just so vile that but unless it happens to align with your own beliefs. And if it is, then that's the work that needs to get done. That's the karma that needs to be worked through from Kata Draconis, So anyway, that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching, and everything's out on the blog over at Stepping Aside, the forecast and the correspondences for work and magic. The web address there is imsteppingaside.com. If you forget, click on more below the video, little word more, and a box will open up and it'll be right there at the top. If you forget. Otherwise, I hope you'll click subscribe here if you haven't. I'd love you to do that, and come back again on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.